Hello, everyone. This is our CCL final preview. Vince will be joining us in just a second. Thank you for coming to the show. There he is. Let's get him on in. It's going to be a very fun one tomorrow. In my opinion, it's the biggest game in LAFC history. It's the final of the CONCACAF Champions League. It's going to be a huge one at 7 p.m. What's up, Vince?
What's up, dude?
Thank you for coming on.
No problem, man. I haven't seen you in a long time because we've been being, pandemic safe, but it's good to see
Yes.
you, bro.
Yeah, same to you. So you currently a correspondent with 110 Football because you've been with LAFC. For those who somehow don't know you, as you introduce yourself and tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's probably the short of it, right? I was with LAFC, in the first season. I started out for 2.5 years. Obviously, and I'm sure some of the people who have been watching this have had someone affected by the pandemic, and unfortunately, I was. I obviously love my time at LAFC, and I continued to follow them. Luckily, the guys at 110 Football had an opening and needed a guy to come in there and just break down some games and maybe even build on that, which hopefully we'll be doing more in season two. So yeah, now check me out. 110 Football is basically my gig at LAFC, just a different name, man.
Yeah, for those of you who don't follow 110 Football, by the way, they have some amazing LAFC coverage. They produce a great show. I believe you guys just finished up your first season. How was finishing that up, especially in quarantine?
It was tough. It was tough. We finished up the first season. We made it through with no problems because we were. It's weird to be on set. You got your mask on. You're not doing anything. You're being socially distant, even when you're just kind of waiting around. And then you take the mask off, you do your thing, you put back on, and you go home. So that's a little rough because you want to hang out with your friends, you want to chat football, you want to chat anything really because you just like seeing people. But no, it was great, and I think we really built off some stuff, found some stuff that we thought worked well. And next season, we're hopefully going to grow on that and just do more things. And hopefully that means seeing people, doing things with people, and actually having people in, interviewing them, and maybe people like yourself, Blake. Man, you got to come into the studio sometime.
We'll see. It does look great on TV, but I can relate. I think I saw you at a few games this year. I was lucky enough to be able to get credentials to some games. It's a weird atmosphere, just the stadium being empty. You were back a few games. How did it, feel just, especially knowing it so well, being a full 32-52 rockin'? It's so weird, right?
Yeah, it's surreal because they did a great job of presentation where like they pumped in some of the sound, and I know that Al Ray, Pat was working on it, Robbie, Alex Sale, all those guys, all my former coworkers. We're trying to keep it like organic. So there'd be times where like a shot would go wide, and you all of a sudden you hear like that kind of stuff. I will say I did enjoy when it was a little bit quieter because we could hear Bob, and I'm sure you were down a little closer, so you could
Yeah.
really hear the instructions and stuff like that. And for someone like me, I love that because I just love the nuances and the language that they use, the language of football, just the little things. But it was surreal. Obviously, it was really cool to be able to still cover the team. I felt for all the people that would send me stuff when I would post a photo, like, "Oh, we wish we could be there," because I wished you could have been there. It honestly wasn't cool being there. To be honest with you, it was fun seeing you guys and seeing the few people that I got to see. But it was very bittersweet just knowing that everyone was at home, just yearning to be there, and I was able to kind of check it out. But really, I mean, we couldn't even see the players. We didn't, you've been in press conferences with me. Usually we get to sit in there and kind of they can see us face to face. Couldn't do that. It was just all Zoom, and it might be that way, for a couple months going forward. So that part's a little rough.
Yes, but when we're back, it's going to be amazing. And I've said this over and over again, guessing you have better context, but I am requesting a 90-plus audio of Bob. I will pay for it. I want it. That's just what I want. It'll be an exclusive, so just let people know that we want that. But let's get into it. It's what I believe, I'm guessing, or I guess I'll question you with this. Is this the biggest game in LAFC history? LAFC versus Tigres, CONCACAF Champions League Final. LAFC could make history.
I think it has to be with that history on the line, right? Supporter Shield's a big deal, but a lot of teams have won it. Although LAFC did it in a style that we'd never seen before in MLS, it's something it's ground that's been covered, right? This though, and then the way they possibly could do it, knocking out four teams from Liga MX. Obviously, Liga MX has been the Dragon, right? LAFC is kind of like the Dragon Slayer this time, and we're no small Dragon Slayer. I mean, we're definitely a team that's formidable. But if they're able to do it in this way with kind of the setbacks and just the draw in general, I always go back to it. I love the podcast that Jordan and Larry did with Carlos when he said he was talking about the draw, and he was like, the first thing I thought was, who drew this name? They should be fired. Like, how could they get us Leon? But then when you realize it wasn't just Leon, it was going to be the path after that. It seemed so insurmountable before we even kicked the ball. Obviously, we went to Leon. It seemed like, oh man, we didn't know what we were in for. It was a lot tougher than we thought. Then we beat Leon, and we all have this vibe of like, this could be something really special. And Cruz Azul was going to come in as the next best team in Liga MX. They were actually eclipsing Leon before the shutdown. But now that we've gotten to see them and build on the performance, I think the Cruz Azul game was good. The second half was phenomenal. But then you built on it at another level. And if they take it up just that extra level, at the very least, we're going to have a very, very good game on our hands.
Yeah, Tigres are going to be an amazing team, but we'll get there in a second. We're going to go how we got here. I brought this here. This is my ticket from the game in Leon. I was so excited to be going to Mexico City for the Cruz Azul game, and then it all got shut down right then. I talked with Gio. We did a preview for the Cruz Azul game, and we talked a little bit about this. But do you think the shutdown? Do you think Cruz Azul had the advantage going into that before we got shut down? How bad do you think it affected them compared to LAFC? Because they were a completely different team. They lost their head coach. They had COVID cases. LAFC, while they were also out of the playoffs, they still kind of had that built momentum, even though they just lost to Seattle in the playoffs.
It's difficult to say. I think that the result that they suffered, the Cruz Azuleado, if you will, against Pumas is really what did them in. I think even if they would have, let's say, not had a 4-0 lead but lost a tough one in the second leg, I think they would have been a little bit more formidable. I mean, it just kind of fell apart there. My biggest concern was the fact that they had played 10 days earlier. So they're still kind of in a rhythm. They're still kind of in that mentality, although, like I said, it kind of knocked them back a bit. But what we saw was an LAFC team in that first half kind of finding their way. They weren't very sharp. And even in the second half, I harken back to that pass that Marc-Anthony Kaye made towards the end of the match where it really could have killed off the game. But he hit it just a little too hard. I mean, they weren't able to get on to the end of it. That would have really killed it off. They wouldn't have had to really push to end that game. So the rhythm was what I worried about. And I think Cruz Azul had the definite advantage, but their mentality wasn't there. And as LAFC started to feel themselves and feel the rhythm, they were able to really put Cruz Azul under pressure. And I think from there, they just kind of crumbled.
Yeah, the second half was completely different from the first half. We saw 2 penalties, of course, Cruz Azul getting the first one, and then Carlos Vela put it away. Going into the half, I was, with this team, I'm never really worried when we're going tied or down in a half because, we saw what happened against Club America. We did that in a second. But going into the second half, do you think LAFC has been a better team in the second half overall with those last couple of games?
Yeah, I always say to people, and it's funny because I get responses back like, well, why can't they just turn it up now? I'm like, well, sometimes you can try to just get into half, minimize the damage, because I know Bob Bradley and his staff are able to, 1, motivate the team, and 2, put a plan together in the second half to say, hey, look, guys, we were doing these things. We know what our plan is, but here's how we can tweak it just that little bit to get the advantages, to find the spaces, to find ways that they can be dangerous or maybe just clean up some things. So anytime LAFC is even down just a goal at half, I'm fairly confident that at least we'll see a response. I'm not saying that they'll always turn it around because you can't always come back. And we should say on the onset from this, LAFC, please don't put yourselves behind a goal in the first 15 minutes, as you have done in the past 2 games. Yes, please do not do that. But you do feel confident that you'll see a response. And in some ways, that's all you can ask for. I know fans want ruthlessness. They want us to take those teams and just put them to the sword. But sometimes, it doesn't always go your way in these one-offs, and the bounces don't always go your way. But as long as you see a team that's really responding and out there, and I think we've seen it in both second halves. Obviously, that second half against Club America, we really saw the response.
Yeah, and you talked about the Club America game. We're going to move to that now. That's how you soccer, so I do have a question for you. We saw Club America in that game, tackle after tackle, foul after foul. They're playing in different games. The question is that how you soccer?
It's not to my liking, but I will defer to Diego Rossi, who today said there's different ways to play football and there's no right or wrong. I will say in the aspect of this, when it's a 1-game playoff, and especially if there's no crowd there to really get on you one way or the other, you got to do everything you can to take advantage of things. Now, I would prefer it be more on the Carlos Vela side against Cruz Azul, where you take advantage. Look, where you're in the balance of play, you've gained an advantage. Maybe you embellish a little bit to make sure that it's for sure a foul, for sure a penalty. I'm okay with that. Away from the play, minutes after, rolling around, it's not my favorite thing. But I do understand what it means and what the ruthlessness is and why sometimes MLS teams play too nice and we need to get a little dirty or get in there. And the thing that surprised me though from that game was you had a Club America team come in and say, we're not really scared of LAFC. We carry a lot of weight around here. We're the best team in North America for so many years. People know us around the world. That's generally not what you see from a team that says that. That's from a team that's scared and not sure it knows how to play. So, and we saw it from the onset. It wasn't just Memo Ochoa. It was from that first couple of minutes when Chiqui got his yellow card. They were ready to just get in the faces and try to bully LAFC, but it's not really a bullying tactic. It's more like we're a little scared of you and we can find maybe an advantage by tweaking you a little bit.
Yeah, you talked about that, and from the reaction was, oh, this is how CONCACAF refs are. No, this is how Liga MX plays. You said MLS is too nice. To be able to compete in the Champions League, do you think they need to do something to kind of boost that and play a little bit more how the Liga MX does, a little bit more tackling, a little bit more aggressive compared to MLS?
I mean, I guess the only upside of the press release that came out today from CONCACAF was that 2021 there will be VAR in the CONCACAF Champions League. I kind of look. I divert from this. I kind of understand why they didn't have VAR. I do feel like, although we're now to kind of the business end of the tournament, I don't think you can just institute VAR midway through a tournament. I prefer that consistency throughout, and I understand why they kept it this way. But going into 2021, instances where you try to pull that off, either you're going to have to get much better at play acting and do it in a way that hides it from the VAR camera, which is very difficult, or you're going to have to find new ways completely, because when VAR comes in, I have complete faith that if VAR was available, that not only would it probably have been a penalty, but at the very least, it would have been two yellow cards. Very most would have been two yellow cards in that situation between Edward Atuesta and Memo Ochoa.
Yeah, the VAR aspect, and I do agree with you with bringing VAR in the middle of a tournament. It just feels weird. It'll really offset something. I saw a comment there. VAR gets it wrong too. That can be argued. We'll actually shift away from the game. What are your thoughts on not only bringing in VAR? We've seen it at MLS for a couple of years. It was at the World Cup with MLS, some pro refs. What's your opinion on VAR coming into the game?
It's weird that after the World Cup that it steadily declined, right? It was really good at the 2018 World Cup. I thought it was quick. The decisions were quick. You kind of had an idea why decisions were made. And now it's just gotten worse as we maybe dug into it more. Maybe that's the problem. Once you uncork the bottle, you can't put it back in, right? You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. As I'm using way too many metaphors and similes on this. But I think it's good. Look, VAR generally is good in instances of play acting, getting violent conduct, things like that, right? Where it fails for me is this idea of how many lines are we going to draw across the field, how close or offside, is the ball actually off his foot? I think we need to re-look at that, and I know that there's been talk of it. I believe it's in Holland that they're going to widen the line, which it seems like a weirder way to do it. They're going to widen the fake lines that they use and say if you're touching, it's like the new daylight rule, and he's on. He's on. I kind of like that, although I guess that could go wrong as well. But like I said, for instances of violent conduct, for instances of things behind the play, I think it does generally get it right. And I'd have to say, there's no way that any of that refereeing crew saw the incident between Atuesta and Ochoa completely. They saw guys on the ground, and I think they pieced it together. Had you had VAR, you would have had a much clearer picture. Obviously, you would have the actual picture. So again, in violent conduct and things behind the play, I do think VAR does a pretty good job.
Yeah, and you raise an interesting point. I believe it was the LAFC Sounders game in the playoffs. They brought out for the LAFC second goal, I believe, got taken away because they brought out the lines, and it was this close with an arm. I know they're changing something with the rules, but it's tough. If it's just a little far, but it's not clear and obvious, but it's offside, should you call it? Then there's that aspect. And I think referees are definitely getting better. You mentioned, I thought it was really good at the World Cup. People seem to like it, but then there's also that aspect of revolutionizing the game and making it more technology-wise. We have goal line technology come in. Do you think soccer should be kept technology-free, or should it be making these moves to be a little bit more similar to as the NFL does it?
You brought up one of my sticking points, goal line technology. The fact that MLS has VAR but not goal line technology seems to be the most backwards way to do it to me. The most important aspect of our game is if the ball has crossed the line to score a goal or not. And I will say this, VAR has gotten most of those calls right. Although I can't remember, I think it was a DC United game where there was a call where it was like, it looked pretty clear, but they never went to VAR, they never checked it. Look, if you have that Hawkeye technology, you have the technology that the Premier League has, I believe Serie A has it, a lot of places have it. It's right away, and it's pretty foolproof. I think that should be the first thing you institute. Then you can fill in the VAR in between, because again, it's the most important aspect of the game.
Yeah, MLS and pro, it's always an interesting talk whenever you're talking about, the referees, they do so much work, but then there's always that stuff in MLS that it just has done differently from the start.
I mean, they don't even have goal line cams, right?
Yeah.
So goal line cams are usually only brought in by the broadcasters. So we can't rely on ESPN.
It's a great angle, by the way. It's just no one's looking at it.
Yeah, it looks fantastic on broadcast, but why wouldn't you just have it? I mean, that's a very simple fix and not even as expensive as the Hawkeye. Again, some of these things just don't make sense. I wish I was in the room for those to make those decisions, because it seems pretty much like a slam dunk.
Yeah, we'll move away from this topic. Just one final question. Would you implement goal line technology in MLS?
Yeah, first thing I would do. Easily.
All right. I do agree with you on that, but let's move on to the final. It's LAFC versus Tigres, possibly the biggest game in club history, the final of the CONCACAF Champions League. I touched on history subject about it earlier, but it'll be the first MLS team to win in the current format, correct? And how big is that for the league?
That is correct. It's huge, and it's not just the trophy, right? You want to close that gap. We talk about that a lot. I feel like that's a topic that maybe gets used a little bit too much, as the closing the gap, because I do think when you get into these situations, we're not considering that there's luck involved, especially in one-off matches. There's luck involved. There's a lot of other things. Like, you can't tell me that even though Toronto lost in penalties, that they're not closing the gap on Chivas when they lose that year. I think it was 2017. That was a very good Toronto team. Chivas really just kind of held out. They made everything physical. They tried to limit shots. They didn't play particularly attractive style football. And I know a lot of Matias Almeida fans would say, "What are you talking about? It's fun. It's apelado." I mean, that's the way he plays. I get it. So I think that aspect of it gets maybe overused, the closing the gap. But what's really important, and what a lot of people will tell you, is it's the chance to go on to that next stage. And although it is somewhat of a novelty tournament, the Club World Cup is important. To be able to play in a tournament where this year you would be up against the likes of possibly Bayern Munich. You'd be up against the likes of the Copa Libertadores winner, which I believe is River Plate at this point. So to play those games, it raises the profile, and it's just another chance for people that maybe aren't as aware of MLS, or maybe have said, "Oh, MLS, I haven't heard about them for a while." Well, guess what? An MLS team is in this tournament, is playing these games because it's earned the right to be there. That's where it's important.
Getting the MLS on the world stage is something they've talked about a lot. And the 2021 Club World Cup, Japan, December 2021, getting that global brand. I mean, we played Vissel Kobe, we've played against Dortmund, we've played against Peñarol, but LAFC's really built this global brand. And you mentioned getting MLS's way. Do you think this is more helpful for MLS, LAFC, or a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both, although I do think that this is more helpful for LAFC. I think LAFC is it's not just embraced the global brand, but it's already kind of made itself a player on the global game. And so they're really going to take advantage of it more so than, say, if the Sounders were to win CCL, which I would root for them if they were in the final, because I do want to see an MLS team make it that far and go to the Club World Cup. I'm not sure that they would resonate quite the same the way, although they do have guys like Nico Ledera, Rui Diaz, who are names on kind of a global stage. But LAFC just has that. They've already made themselves a part of the market. They've been very busy. They have players from so many different countries. I just feel like that would really raise the stock and just really cement what they've said from day one is we're going to be players on the global market. We're not just here to conquer MLS, which Supporter Shield, I think, is a partial way to it. You got to get that MLS Cup to really say you've cemented your place as a conquering MLS. But if you can do this, you're now a player in the global game. You're that first team to reach out and play in that Club World Cup. That's big, and that's something you can always look back on.
Do you think LAFC going into it? You know, they're from Los Angeles, this huge global city. It's a lot of teams. You know, they come here, they have that advantage to get viewership because of it's Los Angeles. You know, two big cities. The Galaxy, NYCFC, they have huge followings, and they've been there because, and also the Red Bulls, just because it's those two cities. Same with LAFC, and now a huge following. Do you think putting out LAFC would get a lot more coverage than putting out, say, the Seattle, as we mentioned?
Yeah.
Not only just with international players.
Yeah, I mean, Los Angeles. I mean, imagine this, Blake. You run into somebody from a foreign country, and they ask you where you're from. You tell them Los Angeles. They're pretty sure they have a good idea where you're from, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're, I don't know, Sporting Kansas City. I'm from Kansas City. Good luck. Good luck telling that person where you're from and how describing where you're at. So yeah, I'd be lying if I said that Los Angeles doesn't play a part in already putting you somewhat closer to the global stage just by proximity, just by geography, and then obviously having a downtown, location, having the stadium that we have. If you tell someone Los Angeles, they can dig a little deeper and go, that's where you guys play, right there next to the Coliseum. Yeah, and it becomes a big deal.
Yeah, that's something that it's been talked about how LAFC capitalized compared to our crosstown neighbors. The Galaxy, you know, they've been here, they have that presence, but, you know, people will say it's dumb, but, you know, their stadium is far away. I know LAFC is, Los Angeles is big on traffic and driving, but it's still, when you look at LA, you see LAFC is in the center of the city, and that's something that the club has made themselves from the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah. Look, there's a reason why the Chicago Fire moved to Bridgeview and now are moving back. There's a reason why the New England Revolution want to look to downtown Boston for a stadium. These are people much smarter than I am and with much longer histories of doing these things, and they're looking that way. So the fact that LFC are already there, it is a big advantage whether the Galaxy want to admit it or not.
Yeah, so let's move on to the game. LAFC, huge MLS Cup Tigres, pretty big club in Mexico. We're seeing reports earlier today that one of the big players, Gignac, is questionable for the game. He wasn't at training today. Is there anything we can hear about that, or if it's just a stunt to get in LAFC's heads?
I don't know if it's a stunt. I'll say this. Everyone at this time of the year, for the most part, is banged up in some way or the other, right? It's the end of your season. You're winding down. You're playing hurt. You're trying to get through little things, whether it's ankle injuries, your hamstrings are flaring up a little bit. So I do think that both Gignac and Aquino, I think, is the other one that might be out. I do think they'll play a part. I do think that they have something, whether it's a sore muscle, a knock, something like that. But I think they'll play a part. And I think, it's a little bit of gamesmanship, the same way that I think maybe Bob Bradley didn't know that Edward Atuesta was going to be for sure out when he was saying the things about him not, for sure not featuring. I mean, I think, and this is kind of off topic, but I think when Bob goes and he says, I don't think Edward Atuesta is going to play, although that's above me. He's one, priming his team to say, hey, guys, we're going to have to probably do it without this guy. But two, he's saying all the right things, right? He's saying, it'd be sad if a young player who meant so much to this team can't play in a final. Maybe he's sending a little message to CONCACAF. It's just kind of subvertly to try to see what kind of influence he can have. These are little things that you do, and the games you play. Although I will say, from Tigres' perspective, the respect that they've shown to LAFC has been much larger and much more genuine than I think even Cruz Azul, definitely more than what Club America showed. I think Tigres is, they're a professional bunch. They want this trophy just as bad as LAFC because it's eluded them for so long. But they, somewhat like LAFC, have been so good domestically. They faltered at this stage. I believe they've actually been they've been Liga MX champs 4 times in 5 years, and at the same time, they've been in 4 finals for the CONCACAF Champions League. So again, it's like it's all converging. These two teams want this trophy bad, which is why I really hope that you asked me that question about is this how you soccer? I hope we just see the regular soccer this time.
Yeah, going back to the thing about Atuesta, CONCACAF released 2 bits of a statement today at the regulation. CCL clearly stated that the referee's decision on the field are final, meaning Atuesta will not be available for the final Furthermore, the committee has sanctioned Ante Razov, LAC's assistant coach, who kind of was the reason why Miguel Herrera had that bloody eye. He kind of punched him. There's a video of it. He kind of grabs his hair at the halftime as they're arguing about how the game was played. He's been sanctioned. He won't be. I don't believe he'll be at the match tomorrow. Do you think this will have an effect?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Ante is important, and you've seen it when you've been at games. You know, he'll get up, he'll tell an attacker to kind of change his positioning, maybe start from a different spot. And I'm sure at halftime, he's vital in talking to players and getting Bob. There'll still be some form of communication, not as overtly as sitting there with a walkie-talkie, but I'm sure he'll be able to communicate in some ways. I mean, if anything, this can kind of fire you up. Ante is a well-liked person in that locker room. And maybe this is something that kind of will just fire the team up to, you know, as if they need any more. I say this, but as if they need any more to fire them up. There's a trophy on the line, you know, but hey, if you need just a little bit more gas in the tank, do it for Ante, man, because he stepped up. I mean, he's not gonna stand down to anyone. I've said for a long time, Ante's a tough dude. You don't mess with Ante Razov. And yet consistently, I see these people step into Ante Razov. I mean, just physically, I wouldn't step to Ante Razov, but I guess these people are learning the lesson the hard way.
Yeah, so we're kind of coming towards the end of an amazing interview with Vince, but let's end. Is there a favorite for tomorrow's match, and what's your score prediction and final out and prediction of how the game will go?
I'm horrible at score predictions. Let's start with how the game will go. Tigres we've already said it. They domestically, they're probably the best team in Mexico domestically over the past 5 years. It probably even goes back a little farther than that. And a lot of that has to do with their coach. Tuca Ferretti is a very good coach. He really organizes his team. They will be difficult to play against. I know one of his ideals, one of the things that he grasps on is having a team that's difficult to play through the middle against. He has a tough spine. So they have a really good goalkeeper, two good center backs in Salcedo and Ayala. They have Pizarro that stands right in front of him. It's kind of their tempo maker. And then you got Gignac right down the middle who can he can go 2v1. I mean, he's a big dude. He can occupy both center backs. But he really thrives on the fact that when they get wide, he can get in the blind spot of center backs and he can finish pretty much any way he wants, right? I mean, the guy's a true goal scorer. He's probably the greatest goal scorer of all time in Liga MX, and that's saying a lot. There's been a lot of good Liga MX goal scorers. So I think what it's going to come down to is two teams that will try to clog the middle, will try to stop any chances of a team to go in transition, because we've seen with LAFC when Carlos Vela and Diego Rossi, and I think one wild card, somebody that we haven't really talked about, Brian Rodriguez hasn't played much lately, and he's going to be available, even though Edward Atuesta won't. When they get out and run and they can go at you, they can be dangerous. And the same goes for Tigres. When they get out and run and you've got to try to keep an eye on Gignac while at the same time stopping the ball, it gets very difficult. So look for, I think, these teams to want to hold the ball and be pragmatic a little bit with it. But look for them also to, when they see a chance to break, they're going to try to go quick. They'll probably try to attack through those channels out wide and then try to get essentially to somebody to finish off in the middle. So that's something to look out for. If I had to guess, look, I'll go with the Magic LAFC scoreline, the one that I feel like they always want to go for. It's 3-1. It's where the game stays tight. It's a 2-1 game until towards the very end. And somebody comes through to really seal it off, somewhat like Latif Blessing did against Club America. So I'm going to go 3-1. I just think that this team has shown from the Cruz Azul game to the Club America game to now here, which I think they'll know that, you know, this is their first real final, their first real chance to do something in a one-off competition. They've raised their game and they've raised their level in every game, and they've continued to just get sharper. So if they continue that trajectory, I do like their chances against Tigres because they have players in the right spots, even without Atuesta. And they've got guys of consequence. So they can do that, and having shown that they can weather, you know, a little bit of CONCACAF, being CONCACAF a couple of times, I think they've put all the kind of requisite things together to be a team that can be the first to make history in MLS.
It's going to be a fun one. We have one, you mentioned Atuesta. We have one question that came in. Pancho or Blessing starting tomorrow, or someone else in place of Atuesta?
it was me personally, I like Poncho. I like him as a number 6, although he hasn't been deployed that much in kind of that deeper role because I really like the way Poncho passes. I think he's a very good passer positionally. He's able to basically pass and move into the next space, kind of be that tempo setter with his passing. Now, Edward Atuesta also a phenomenal passer. Where Edward gives you that little bit of edge, he's a little bit more athletic, a little bit better dribbler, which makes me think that Bob likes somebody that can dribble in that situation. So I think if I had to guess what Bob will do, it'll probably be Mark actually in that spot, and yeah, Latif coming in. So Mark, the deepest, Latif, and Sifu, and I think that might also bode well for them because LAFC's central midfielders are really kind of the first to get out wide, to get out to those wide attackers and try to put some pressure. If you've got really mobile guys like Blessing and Sifu to do that, it's really going to try to shut down the wings, which, like I said, Tigres is going to look to attack down the wings, get their fullbacks or their wingers forward, and then find that man Gignac and just see if he can create a mismatch on a center back or just basically ghost in from that blind spot and finish something off.
It's going to be a very fun one. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope to see you back on. If you guys want to find Vince, remind them where they can find you across socials.
For this, that's how you soccer with underscores between the words. It's just a funny thing, and it's stuck on. But Twitter is very easy to find me. It's at LAFC Vince. And obviously, please check out and follow 110 Football TV. We'll be doing a lot of great stuff. You can follow our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. And man, hey, dude, it's been good to see you. So thanks so much for inviting me on, bro.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been amazing. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, man.
See ya. All right, everyone, there you have it. LAFC versus Tigres, the CCL final tomorrow. You can catch this game 7 p.m. TT, FS2 to the 9:80 a.m. La Mera for audio. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you guys on the next episode of Central Show Live. Y vamos, LAFC.